Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us. I am Nick Scheist, and you may remember me from the Scheist Podcast and Bad Movies We Love.
And I'm Seth Vargas of the Movie Friends Podcast.
And we decided to join forces, a team-up, if you will, because X-Men 97 was so good, we just couldn't help ourselves.
That's right. So join us as we discuss our personal history with the comics, the films, and the collectible trading cards of the X-Men universe.
And, of course, the catalyst for it all, X-Men 97. To me, my X-Friends. Hey there, X-Friends. Nick here. Seth was actually on vacation when this episode was recorded. But fear not, I was not alone. In the very first X-Friends exclusive, I was joined for a very special interview with the voice of Roberto da Costa, Sunspot himself, Gui Agustini. Gui, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course, Nick. I'm so glad this is happening, and thanks for inviting me. And yeah, I'm super stoked.
It must have been a whirlwind for you recently. The last time you and I spoke face to face was at the Emerson College panel, and that was right before Comic-Con. So yeah. How was Comic-Con, and how has the response to the show been?
I mean, Comic-Con was a dream, like in many ways. Like, I had heard of Comic-Con, obviously, but until a few months ago, I had no idea what like Comic-Con really was. Just like sometimes I'm explaining to people who are not really in the industry that I'm going to, everybody has heard of San Diego Comic-Con, but I say I'm going to all these other cons, and they don't understand it's all called Comic-Con. But so and then like my first experience at a con was at WonderCon, and I remember Isaac Robinson Smith, who voices Bishop, was telling me, all about it, and that was the first time I heard somebody tell me about the experience in San Diego. And really, it was like that. But obviously, like, he had never also been there signing, and we all had that experience of having this incredible booth, part of the Unknown Comics, and being part of this amazing panel, 2,000 people. Man, it was just so awesome, and a lot of my friends, a lot of people from the community were there. So yeah, I also got to perform live at a nightclub, and I enjoyed that. Yeah, I enjoyed the after parties. Like, I got invited to some really sweet ones. I met Kevin Feige. Like, it was just like so amazing. So yeah, very, very dreamy. And I'm super grateful that it actually happened.
Yeah, and I was looking back at sort of the release calendar for the show, and it looks like it ended in May. So it's been
May 15th. Yeah.
So a handful of months. And so I'm curious, like, what was it like while the show was beginning to air? And then I imagine, people started to catch up to it after the first couple of episodes. And then by May, now you're at full steam. So, what were those months like right after the show finished airing? Was there like apprehension on whether or not it was going to be successful? Were you already, working on something else and not really thinking about what the sort of like cultural impact of bringing back the X-Men in this way was going to be?
Well, I think like at first I really had no idea up to the point of the premiere that we had before, like a week before it streamed on Disney Plus, right? And one of my good friends was like, Guy, like, he obviously loves X-Men and all that, but he's like, Guy, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be good. I was like, like I had no idea. And really, even about like the whole like fandom and this whole experience, I really had no clue. And I guess to my own benefit, like I never really put too much thought into it. It was really the moment of the premiere that was obviously excited, nervous, to get like, going to meet people, red carpet, all that kind of thing. And also obviously watch these 3 episodes they're going to show. But then like I'm walking to El Capitan Theater in Los Angeles, and then this huge line of cosplayers, wow. I was like, oh my God, this is wild. I really had no clue what I was getting myself, or I got myself into. And so after that, the first episode, you know, obviously like the reception was amazing. I mean, watching in that big screen was incredible. I was very nervous, and I'm like, and then I was so happy, and so like I was like, this is amazing. This is wild. This is like way much more than I could even imagine. But obviously, nobody knew how it was going to get received by, you know, the world and the critics and everything like that. Those are like, it was a fan event, right? It was a fan event. And then the first episode, I was in New York doing motion capture. I watched with some friends, but then, you know, I was obviously very active on social media, and then from episode one, the response was incredible. Like, it was incredible. Oh my God. LeBron James was like tweeting on like, it was crazy. Like it was this, everybody was commenting, was trading, trending number one on X. Like, it was wild. And then after I got back to LA, every week we had this watch parties that I think you're aware of. That's coming to Villainy Cantina in Los Angeles. And that was like, it was just amazing, because every week we were watching with the fans, a lot of people that, you know, became good friends of mine now. And it was such a wonderful experience to have the communal experience again with a, you know, great sound system, you know, bigger TV per se, you know, like, instead of just watching it on my phone or something like that. So, and then just week by week up to like the moment of like episode 5 that really, like I say, broke the internet, right? Like it was crazy. It was really insane. So, you know, I think after that first episode with the positive response, I was just like, you know, having an incredible time, and just like hoping that every week the response was going to be very similar. And it did, you know, and then we were like rated right away 100% of Rotten Tomatoes, and all these things, and all the metrics that were coming out very positively. Then it kind of went down at one point, but then it went back up, you know. But anyway, it was just like, it was so positive from the get, like, and online, and my experience, yeah, it's been really surreal, as I like to say.
Who was the first person that reached out to you after those first couple episodes dropped and was like, "Oh my God, do you know what you've done here?"
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I'll remember, because, you know, some of my closest friends, they, you know, they were with me when, I mean, I could only take 2 people at the premiere. So, but then, like, I was with one of my best friends in New York, and then my actual best friends, and, you know, I was like sending them messages, and they don't live in Los Angeles, so I haven't seen them in person, but, you know, they were messaging me and all of that. But I don't know. I can't remember a specific person per se that, like, but, you know, I had some, you know, friends that I don't really see much or hadn't seen in a long time, and like reached out to me when they found out. They didn't even know it was me, obviously, because I couldn't say anything. And that was pretty sweet, you know, and they were watching, and they were like, "Oh my God, I can't," like, you know, I heard you the first, I was like, is that Gui? Like, this, you know, and like, so that was pretty sweet and pretty special.
I mean, that's great to hear, because I mean, it really did sort of blow up on the internet. I was like a couple of days behind the debut day. And then after a couple of episodes, I was like, that whatever night that is, I'm making sure I watch it that night, because it's going to be that kind of thing where there's so much momentum behind it that I can't let myself get too far behind, or else it's going to get ruined for me. So to do myself a favor, it was just like, okay, I'm watching this every single night that it debuts. But for you, you've done a lot of acting, a lot of directing, editing, producing, writing. So where did the opportunity to jump in here and play Roberto come from?
Well, you know, very blessed to have been working with you know, very prominent high level agency here in the US, who represents me for voice work. And that started in New York. The name of the agency is CESD. And they're very known in the commercial world. I mean, you know, they also represent people theatrically for film and TV. You know, they're a strong agency all around. But I've been very fortunate to work with them commercially and in the voice world since 2015 is when I first signed with them. But in New York, I didn't really get to audition for animation. I think like their strong department of animation is here in Los Angeles. And so when I moved to LA after the pandemic, and then started to audition because they also represented me for that in that department. So that's how it really happened, because it's so tricky with any, voice work or acting in general, it's such a double-edged sword because you need reps to be able to audition for these bigger projects. But then you have to have credits to be with that, like it's such a, it's been a challenge for me, in my career and our friends, like, we all try to help each other with referrals and stuff like that, but it's also very tricky. I've just been very fortunate with, the multiple languages that I speak. And I had a, voiceover reel before I moved to New York and, and I had a lot of commercials under my belt from Florida where I lived before going to New York. So I think that all, helped me and was in my favor. So yeah, I just started to audition and I did a small part in Spidey and His Amazing Friends. I think that was my very first animation experience. And actually in 2020, when I moved to LA in 2020 at the end, while the pandemic was happening and I was going through a lot of stuff personally. And then I took a class, my only voiceover animation class ever, because in New York I had done commercial voiceover work and stuff like that, but never an animation. And it's so interesting because the universe is so wild. I love to look back and connect the dots that way. But I was living with one of my really good friends here in LA, and his friends for his birthday. These two women, that's what they do. They work with voice. They do a lot of dubbing, and they had started this class online, and they hadn't seen each other in a long time, and they were like going to get together for his birthday, and that's where I met them. And they were like, "Hey, do you want to jump in?" So I jumped in, and I had my first like animation experience in terms of like class and how the audition process and just to play and create characters and stuff like that. And then I started to audition a lot. And yeah, so the Spidey thing happened, and it was super fun, super fast. Oh my God, it was the fastest thing. Like so, like boom, boom, boom. There's, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm a newcomer, and it was super fun. And then I got to audition for Roberto. I auditioned twice in the fall of 2021, and then in the spring of 2022.
Wow. Oh, so it's been a long process to get the show to the point where it was complete.
Yeah. And now that I, have heard my castmates and the stories and all of that, I think they started casting beginning of 2021. I think, a lot of people came on board. I don't know when exactly, but definitely by the summer. And I think they were already like recording. And so I think I was the last audition, or one of, for sure. And yeah, I don't know why I had to audition twice, or how it went, how it happened. But yeah, it was like September, October 2021. I got, again, I've been saying, like, I never knew it was X-Men. I did not know Roberto. Wow. Yeah, I never knew. Everybody figured it out. I never did, because I didn't even know X-Men 97 was happening. I knew nothing. So I just like, it's a Brazilian character. They asked me to do a Brazilian accent and a neutral accent, and I did it, and I sent it in, and that was it. And as the 98% of my auditions, you don't hear back. But then almost 6 months later, 5 months later, I received, I think it was the exact same size. I just remembered, like, it was either the same code name or the same character name. Just remember, like, I've auditioned for this. You do it again, do it again. And then 2 months later, I got the email that I was booked for it. So it was quite surreal. But I started, mid 2022, but recordings had already been happening, so that's why, like, it's such a long process. Like, I think it was like 3 years from when they started to create the process of season 1. So, it takes a while.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And if I recall correctly, when you were at Emerson, you had mentioned that you weren't like a comic book reader before getting into this, and no shame, of course. But like, how do you go about like learning about the X-Men when you find out that, hey, I am doing an X-Men show? Like, how do you prepare for that?
Yeah, I read, they sent me a link of the Marvel database, and that was my number one source of research. But actually, I mean, yeah, like in terms of like backstory, understanding the character and all these things, because number one is always going to be the script, and to my advantage, though I had, I grew up with a show. I didn't remember almost anything other than like there's Wolverine, there's these characters, but
Yeah.
I also watched it in dubbed Portuguese in Brazil and all of this stuff. So I went to, I didn't watch the entire show of the original show. I just went on YouTube. I watched a lot of clips, to remember and understand. But then I just I went on YouTube and online and I researched everything that I could find on Roberto on Sunspot, and there wasn't a ton. So I just watched everything that had been done, X-Men Evolution, and obviously Adrian Canto as the first MCU Sunspot in Days of Future Past, and then Henry Zaga in the New Mutants. So I just watched everything that was there available. And I read, what the powers were, and watched some YouTube clips on him and stuff like that. And a lot of these videos had images of the comic books, right? But then, I just guided myself with the script, and I just did my best to portray each scene as truthfully as possible, and also with the vision that the creators wanted.
Yeah. Well, when I knew that I was doing this, I should have dug in my collection sooner, but I have these right here.
Oh, nice.
These are from the 91, 92, maybe
Yeah.
93. But Sunspot's character was always one who the visual design was really interesting. And I feel like it's a character that doesn't get a ton of attention. And he was recently featured in the New Mutant series that ended, I think, last year. Not just the movie, but there was a comic series where he's one of the main characters. And he's portrayed as maybe an 18 or 19-year-old again. And so I want to ask you about specifically Roberto, just as a performer, as an artist. You talk about trying to do this as genuinely as possible, but as a Brazilian, what does playing this character mean to you?
Oh, I mean, so much. It was I didn't know he was the first Marvel superhero, and obviously it was a lot of responsibility that I felt. There was a lot of nervousness in the sense of I want to do this justice, and I want to represent my country, Latin America. But at the time, I think it was more Brazil. Now, man, it's been so crazy how and wonderful the impact that having him on the show has had, and for me, hearing from the fans and how people, the Latinos feel represented and all that. But yeah, I mean, it was a big responsibility. I was oblivious to a Brazilian character in the X-Men world, in the Marvel world. So I was surprised, and I was like, wow, I mean, it's such an honor. I have no words to describe. I'm the selected one to be this Brazilian character in this, humongous IP that so many people love, and I grew up loving it. Right. So, yeah, definitely, an honor, and I mean, in the beginning, quite a lot of nervousness, and in my first few recordings, just like any job that I do, anything that's new, I think it's just natural. But for me, especially, as I grow older, I think I deal better with my anxiety and my nervousness. But man, it was so much higher than it is now after you become comfortable, after you know people, know the team, and you do it a few times. But in the beginning, oh man, yeah.
And speaking of that, I mean, Roberto is kind of like an outsider character to this group of X-Men. Like the original series, Jubilee was basically that character. She was the new kid that the older team is recruiting. They're trying to protect her from the Sentinels. And that's kind of a similar place where this one starts. So, I mean, you mentioned some of the nerves of being sort of like new kid on the block, but in terms of like Cal and Lenore came back to do voices for Wolverine and Rogue, right?
Yeah, and Allison Seeley Smith for Storm and George Buza for Beast. I mean, there's so many that got to come back.
So what was it like jumping in to that cast and knowing that they had already all done this before? Like, what kind of advice did you get from them in starting the process?
Well, advice none, because I didn't meet them until the premiere. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, none of us, like, except the OG cast who knew them themselves because of the '90s recording. I didn't meet anybody until the premiere at El Capitan, and I think it was the same thing for Holly. I think it was the same thing for almost everybody, except like like AJ, who voices Gambit, and Matthew Watterson, who voices Magneto. I mean, they've worked together many times, and some people, they had worked before together. So, but I don't think anybody recorded together, with the exception maybe a couple times. I think I heard that some of them had a couple of recordings where they were not necessarily together physically, but they were in the same recording session. But yeah, for most of everybody, we just recorded on our own. We didn't talk to anybody. I actually didn't even know, like, I don't know if you knew, but like at the end of last year, I think November or something, there was a leak online, and that's where my name and a couple other names were revealed. Because up to that point, nobody knew. If it wasn't for that leak, nobody knew who the new characters were going to be. I think only Cal and Lenore, I think those were revealed because they did, I think they were part of Comic-Con or something like that. So I think those main ones were publicly like released. They're going to come back and do their roles. But a lot of us, it was because of that leak. But there was no, like, it was so secretive. We couldn't say anything, and there was even, I remember talking to my agent at the time, and I don't know, I think even like Holly's name was not correct, or I don't know, they were messing things up. So they're like, yeah, just, you don't say anything, like you don't comment on anything that you get asked, like you just like ignore everything, so yeah, but and also in terms of that nervousness, like it wasn't because I didn't know them, because I didn't get to record with them. Like, again, I think that helped me. It was just me and the team. Like, I wasn't in the room with that. It's just a little more intimidating. Obviously, again, if that happened many times, I was going to ease into it, and everybody's so lovely, so it would be so wonderful to have had that experience. But yeah, we just do it on our own. So there's not none of that like really matters, other than coming in with that anxiety and nervousness of like, oh man, I want to do my best, job, the best job possible.
And so this is more of a technical question for, I mean, myself and for people who are like maybe looking for some behind the scenes stuff in terms of voice acting. Do you read against their pre-recorded lines, or do you just read off the page based on maybe something that's on the screen?
Yeah. So my experience there, like, especially in the first few recordings, our incredible voice director, who also was part of the casting process, is Meredith Lane. And through the panels I was a part of, I now understand that she's she's been part of like a lot of like most of the most incredible animated series that people know of. So she has a ton of experience. She's so lovely, and she's amazing to work with. So in the beginning, she would, because there was no other lines from anybody, she would read the other characters' lines. That was with everybody. That's what I heard across the board. So obviously, it's not, but she does her best. She's an incredible voice actor as well. And so, that helps to get the first read through of a scene. But then I think that's across the board too. But for me, what every single time, like then you go line by line and you give different reads of every single line. So you're covering the page that way, going one or a couple passes, having her read with you, and then you just go line by line and you give different reads and you keep moving until you get through your entire session. And you do that for, all the episodes, all your scenes. Not in one, like, I didn't record all my episodes all at once. They're broken down into sessions, but then once they get the animatic, and you're brought back to either ADR or to re-record things that have changed, lines or whatever, if they have that particular scene with the other actor or actress's voice, they will have that. So now I was like, there was a few times I was listening to Holly before I said my line, right? So I would hear her and then I say my line and the scene continues. But then, even then, I go back and I read one line at a time. And you give like the A, B, C, sometimes D, whatever. But usually you do 3 passes, right? Just like, I think that's, for commercials is the same thing, just do usually 3. Some people let you just go for more. But you do 3 versions of each line. And then if you need to do again, you do it again, you get the notes and you keep doing it until you move to the next line and then you keep on going.
Yeah, I've had to record some voiceover stuff for this show or for other shows. And I'm like, I don't like the inflection that I put on that word. I need to go back and start from the beginning. Why am I breathing in the middle of that word? Okay, let's start from scratch.
There you go. Yeah. It's like, yeah.
You had told a story on a different podcast, and forgive me, I don't know the name, but I'll let you plug it if you want. I heard that there was a particular line reading with Roberto and his mom, and it was the way that he spoke to his mother, where you came in and said, like, this would be something that like maybe a 10 or 11-year-old says to their mom, but not somebody who's 18. And, so I thought it was interesting that you were able to like step in and be like, hey, well, this is my experience with like the language specifics and the character specifics and the cultural specifics for this. So did that happen often? And of course, please, like, what was that podcast so people can listen to it?
Oh man, I will not remember either because I said it in a couple of different ones. So I don't know. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I'll find it on the Instagram and
okay,
I'll put it in the show notes.
We'll do that. But yes, well, but look, they were so open from the get. Like they were so lovely that they wanted my input in everything that was written in Portuguese. But when I was reading the script, that word is so mother in Portuguese in a like very, in a child way is mamãe, which is kind of like mommy, like it's just a way that kids pronounce it. And so that was italicized, I remember. And even like, but knowing that it didn't, I think the script said he was 18 or something, but just by everything that I was researching, or maybe I already knew that he was like that age, like a teenager. I was like, nobody says that, right? So that was with me while I was reading the script, and I wanted to bring it up once I was there for my first recording, and I did, but they were, I think right off the bat that they were so, welcoming to me saying stuff, and I will never forget just hearing, Bo de Mayo telling me, look, this is your character, we're here, like you'll guide us, and that felt so good, to hear and to give that, give me that confidence and stuff. So yeah, I brought it up because also they were like, look, this is not for kids. This is not like your regular cartoon. So we don't want like a kid's voice or a cartoon voice. That we want this to be more mature. And that's why, I say like, there's nothing too much that I put on other than a little bit of, a higher inflection at times and, the dialect and stuff like that. But I guess I already sound, youthful, I guess, in my register. So there's not much of a huge affectation of my voice. And so I brought it up because they said that like this is very mature. Like we want him to be, even though he is 17, 18, like we want him to be mature. So it's like great. And so I brought it up right away. I was like, look, I've been wanting to say this anyway, but that word, especially if you want that to be the case, like nobody would say my mind, so it's just mine. And they were super open to it. But everything else, I've been asked this, with all the Brazilian expressions and sentences, like everything was there, like in the script, and most of them were exactly. I think all of them, maybe with the exception of one or two that I don't even remember because there was a couple times that I said some things differently that I asked them if it was okay, and they said yes, please. And I don't know if that's what made the cut, but they were just like a different way of saying something that was already written, that was fine, that was good, So the expressions were pretty spot on. And I learned recently that the reason why is because Bo has a Brazilian friend, and so he got like he got the input for the script in that way, not just Google Translate or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear also that they gave you that trust right away, and not just trust, but like respect, collaboration, confirmation that like we chose you for a reason, so we're gonna let you guide this character, because like now, like you're Sunspot now.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, so
I imagine the success of this show will carry it into at least another season. I mean, the IMDb has it listed as seasons 2 and 3, which, however long this could take to produce one season, it may take a while to get a second and third season off the ground, but like you're Sunspot now. And I'm wondering how much of the overall story arc for the show did you actually know before recording the lines? Did you have all of the scripts for all of the episodes already?
No. So none of us will get the entire season because we only get the scripts that we are in.
Okay.
And sometimes not the full script. Most of the, I think all of us got the entire script, but I heard there are instances where you don't actually get the entire script of that episode. You get your scenes and that's it. But I think for every single episode, I got it in its entirety. But the ones that I was not a part of, I never got them. That's why, episode 5, I didn't know that was happening until like a week or so. But I until a week before, because my castmates gave me the insight, and I was like, "Whoa, what?" Otherwise, I would have been just as surprised as everybody else.
Yeah, I mean that is a heavy episode, and the first time I watched it, I was just kind of like silent, as the theme music is a slower, more somber version of the theme music as the end credits play, and just kind of sat there like, wow, they really did this in this cartoon, like to kill off a legacy character like that halfway through the season. That's bold. Plus there's a huge genocide going on as well, like really sort of shifted the gears from like, this is a cartoon, but we're taking the ideas that we're presenting here very seriously.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that I with my co-host that we've talked about the most is like how relevant a lot of all of the stories are to modern day, because I think what we both said when we started recording was like, this could have been an easy, just like nostalgic cash grab to go in here and be like, people love the X-Men. The cartoon was popular. We have the platform to do it. Let's just bring it back. And it could still be for kids. It's on Disney Plus. It doesn't have to be geared towards my age demographic that watched it in the 90s growing up. But to take that and then to make it very adult and still accessible to kids, I think is one of the show's best successes, is that it's able to access all of these different themes and tones that maybe weren't accessible to the show when it was geared to sort of be like Saturday afternoon entertainment. It's like the stock of what the show is rose a lot. And the second time I watched episode 5, I was like, I knew what was coming, and I was even sadder than the first time because I was like,
Wow.
now I'm watching this for research purposes so that I
Yes,
can go and
yes.
talk about it. And I'm like, man, like this is just it's heavy. I don't want to do it a third time. I kind of do because AM Cinematheque out in Los Feliz, it's like off of I think it's on Vermont. They're doing an entire A to B or A to Z season run of the show this Saturday. And
What?
yeah, so they're showing it in the theater on Saturday.
How come I had not heard of it?
I don't know. I heard about it like yesterday or the day before. And so I saw the post. I was like, let me go get tickets. And it's like, no, it's sold out. So there's a standby line already. So I was like, this happens a lot with them. Yeah, of course.
Send it to me just so I won't be in town, unfortunately, but I haven't been really. I've been so busy like traveling and stuff, and I've been posting my things, but I haven't been consuming a lot of Instagram. So I don't know if anybody posted, but I haven't seen it, and nobody has said anything. So anyway, I'd love to share. But that's wild. That's so amazing. Oh, I wish I could be there.
I know that's crazy. That we're just gonna steamroll the entire season in one sitting on Saturday afternoon, and they sold out like before I could even see the post. It was already sold out.
That is so smart. I mean, more theaters could do that even in 2 sittings, like 1 to 5 and 6 to 10 or something like that. Because who doesn't want to watch it in a big? I mean, it's such an because look, the Newton brothers, the entire everything. The sound is so incredible. Like again, watching these at Scum and Villainy, like it was so wonderful because it's such a cinematic experience. But there's a lot. The quality of the TV, again, not TVs, but you know what I mean. Like that obviously it's not like a theater. So that experience must be wonderful. So. I mean, amazing to those who are able to do it.
But I'm happy for everybody that got tickets to that. Fortunately, by the time that this interview airs, Saturday will be in the past, so there will be no FOMO based on that. But in terms of like Roberto's story personally, because you're learning this as you go. You said you don't have all this happening. So how does it feel to go through his story? I mean, in the first episode, we kind of joked when we started recording this podcast that, Roberto's like, oh, so you guys are kidnapping me now? And he goes from sort of like outsider, not wanting to really be part of the X-Men, doesn't want to recognize himself as a mutant because he's rich. He likes partying. He's got a fairly good life aside from being hunted by a bunch of psychopaths with super weapons. And then, as the season goes along, we get this confrontation that he has with his mom, where his mom turns on him. And like, that's a huge emotional swing right there for this character. And it like changes the entire trajectory of what happens after that. So like, what was it like to learn about it? And like, how are you feeling when you're getting in the booth and recording that stuff?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, it was all like, it all had its different challenges. I don't remember the order exactly of how I recorded it. But I do remember that I think I got the first the episodes that Roberto is in. I think the first 4, because I'm not in 5 or 6, so I never got those. I think I got those first, and then I read them, and just trying to like understand. There's it's so hard to understand that script. I'm gonna be very honest because I'm not used to all that lingo and all those characters I couldn't remember. So there's a lot of just like trying to understand what was going on. And then preparing obviously my scenes and stuff. But the difference here is that, you don't have to memorize, you go in there. I know I'm going to have a team behind to work with. And I relied a lot on their guidance, and then their vision, especially in the beginning. So once I'm there, I'm familiar with the scene. I know what's going on, but then they're like explaining to me things more specifically because they have the vision of what the animatics is going to be. So like, we need more volume here. This is a bigger thing. This is a bigger, and then you just play in the moment, which acting really is all about, or what I'm really into of this whole, acting thing is just like being present in the moment. And in this case in particular, you don't have to memorize anything. You just read it off the page or, on the screen that they give you to read, and you're giving different ideas and vibes and motions, and again being guided by Meredith, what they need more of or less of, you know what I'm saying? So it becomes so much of that in the moment, give and take. And so, yeah, I mean, it had its challenges, but it's such like, I get the direction, I do my best, and I'm in that moment, and then you move on and you move on. So the preparation to me is always just more like, I want to be very familiar with certain words that maybe I'm not, and also in the beginning I had like a much thicker accent, and then I started like tone it down through the process. And so I had less of a concern or work on that, but yeah, I mean, I think it's just very, very in the moment. There's not much to prepare other than familiar with the scene, and then you're there and you're doing your best to figure it out, which is what any, you're doing theater, you're figuring it out, you have just a longer process. If you're doing film and TV, you have way less on set. Obviously you need to know those lines, but everybody's trying to figure it out, and you're getting notes. Maybe you're not getting notes. In this case, you're going to get it because you have the luxury of just redoing it and redoing it and redoing it again. And so the pressure in that way is way less, and so it becomes more fun. But yeah, I mean, I just like, for those heavier scenes, it's just like, how can I connect to those moments as honestly possible, and then again, just relying on what they need more of or less of.
Yeah, I imagine it's slightly different than when like a lot of your physicality is part of the performance, like how you embody being Roberto, if you were to do it like say on stage or in front of a camera, is different than it's going to be when you're behind the microphone. But
absolutely, because like you have, it's such a specific thing. You have to be at a certain distance, and sometimes like I was like, for certain efforts, like I wanted to move and do the thing, so I am more it's more honest and more real, right? And then I would like go away, like, oh, like all these things are so technical, and like, oh my god, it feels so constricted. And then so you have to find it. Like everything is just like you're figuring it out in the moment, and but you're right. I mean, obviously the body has to be a part of it, your performance in the booth. I mean, so much, but it becomes so technical that you can't just like, I just want to act to make it, it's not natural at all. So that's why, like, the performances that Lenore Zan, gave with Rogue, I mean, she had, I think the harder scenes in terms of the emotionality and all of that stuff. And she shared, I mean, I guess, sadly, to her benefit and advantage, and for us viewers and experiences, like she had so much personal things going on in her life while she was recording that she used it. That was so useful for everything that character was going through. So, I just love when the typical cliche of acting that it imitates life happens, because, it's just so much more powerful.
Yeah, and to her credit, like it really comes across in the episodes. Like you can hear sort of like the trembling nature like of her voice as she's in the wake of having lost Gambit. She thinks she lost Magneto at that point, to like the whole structure of her life at that point is sort of falling apart. And like you really hear the vulnerability in that character's voice in these moments where she gets to be the most badass version of the character that we've ever probably seen on screen as well. So it's a great sort of like dichotomy between these two things. And it's one of the things that the show does very, very well. But given where the show ends its first season, do you personally have things that you want to see for the show and for Roberto beyond this? Or are you sort of like, hey, I just want to sit back, see where the writers take it? Because I feel like you're invested at this point. Like you've just done all the cons, right? You're doing LA Comic-Con in October. I think you have a digital signing right after we get done recording here.
Yeah.
Like you're still very much in the middle of being Sunspot. So how connected are you to the character now? And like, what do you want to see?
Yes, definitely much more deep, that's for sure, because of all the learnings of the comics. I've gotten comics myself. I've been reading them. I've been hearing stories from other people who are, big fans of Sunspot and all of that. And also for second season, I've been working a little bit differently. I just like, again, I now understand the world. So like, it's just a different process. Like I said, like there's more care. Absolutely. There's, not that I'm, preparing any differently. It's just that I have more knowledge, and thus the saying goes, right? Is like, oh, it's also a double-edged sword, because now there's more things going in my head and stuff like that. But I also still, like, I know very little comparatively to the fans, really. So I don't know any of those like major storylines or the things that would been said through the through season one on X, especially by Bo DiMaggio sharing stuff. Go read The Age of Apocalypse. Go do this. Go do that. Like I don't. I'm getting it bits through social media and stuff. So I think I'm much more. I think you put it in a very good way that I haven't said before, but I think it's more like, I want to see where the writers take it. And I just want to continue to serve as best as possible. And I just want to be just as great, for the audience and for ourselves. But I don't have particularly like, oh, I want to go this way, because again, I don't know these stories. I understand a little bit more now, all these characters that showed up at the end and stuff. Right. And the, what's the word I'm looking for? The speculations that people have of what could be season 2 and stuff. So, but yeah, I think it's going to be wonderful, and they're working very hard to keep the same level of mastery, right, with the storytelling. The one thing I've said, because I've been asked this, a few times, is because through season 1, before it premiered, I was sent a few digital copies of some of the New Mutant editions, and
cool.
By Bo and his team. Just he wanted to get, for me to get a little more sense of the comics in a particular moment and stuff, of his like arrogance and whatnot. And I read one of my favorite scenes. Obviously there's like more than 500 comics with Sunspot, but I really loved his bit with Deathbird.
Oh.
And I thought that was wonderful. It was so funny, kind of like their love affair and stuff. And I was so surprised, because again, I didn't have that episode. I didn't know Deathbird was going to be in the season at all. So, I would love to have a either confrontation or just a scene between, Roberto and Deathbird. I would love that. That would be my one thing that I hope it can happen, but other than that, in terms of storyline and stuff, I trust them. They know so much more than I, and I'm just happy to continue to be a part of it and do my best work.
Yeah, and like you said, the bar is going to be like pretty high at this point. So yeah, not rushing into things, like taking time, taking care. Was it books from the Chris Claremont series, the New Mutant stuff that you were reading, or was it some of the newer stuff?
No, it was from Chris. Yeah.
Okay. There was a rumor that I saw recently about one of the characters that was going to get introduced into season 2. So I guess the ball is already sort of rolling on the designs for season 2.
Yeah, I think during D23 just now, right? Or I think it was D23 that they released a few characters that are going to be part of season 2 and stuff. So yeah, I mean, you guys who know ins and outs of the comics and stuff, you guys have better speculations about where this is going and could go.
Yeah. I want to ask you too, because all of this was sort of piecemealed out to you, one of the most important elements of the show is these competing ideologies between how Charles Xavier views mutant kind's relationship to the world and how Magneto views mutant kind's relationship to the world. I mean, it's like the central thesis as to why they're on opposing sides and not working together, right? And so I'm curious, like, once you finally got a chance to watch the entire show play out, do you feel pulled in one direction or the other? Like, if you were making the decisions for Sunspot, like, he goes with Magneto on the show, and like, I understand why he does it when he does that. Like, based on his experience up until that point, he's like, this is the right decision for me. And one of the biggest callbacks that we've been talking about throughout recording our 10 episodes on this show is that it's very difficult to look at Magneto as a black and white villain. I think when you look at some of the earlier iterations of this character, it was kind of easy to just put him on the side as the X-Men's villain. But like, the more you get to know about Magneto, the more he begins to make sense.
Correct. I mean, I couldn't agree more with you, because my experience growing up watching, I was like, Magneto is the villain. He is right. Like, and through the movies and everything. So when this version comes about, and I read the first couple episodes, but especially like watching it, because again, then it's like I don't really have scenes with Magneto other than I'm a part of the scene of some of the scenes and stuff. So I'm focused on, whoever I'm talking to and obviously those lines, but like watching and experiencing it, I was like, whoa, absolutely. And I think that was the whole purpose, and they masterfully crafted it that way, and it worked so beautifully. So like, it's so hard, because obviously we have to literally put ourselves into that, in those shoes, in that situation, to be able to say, to give it a speculation. But I don't know. I think like, I don't have a very black and white answer to that, but I think it does make sense. And I think if I were in that position, I could definitely see myself, taking the same choice. It makes sense in that moment, and especially, though, I guess for me, reading that in that moment with Jubilee, because everybody was like, he's like, yeah, but it's like, this is such a new thing. It's like, come on, like, look, he could be fully in love. I don't know if it's me. I'm like, there's so many things that are so much more, quote unquote, I don't want to say important, but like deeper, that in that moment, it's like, I'm not blinded by love in that way, so I could totally relate to that. Maybe if it was me, maybe it would have been done in a little bit different way, because I don't tend to, or do my best not to I don't know what the word would be. Nobody said like he was a douche, a douche or whatever, but I just personally have so much sometimes like more care for others than for myself. And I've been learning to like, do less of that, and just like own my decisions and stuff like that, but but I think that the core of it's like makes sense.
Yeah, he doesn't strike me. The character design doesn't strike me as like, oh, he's this douche. It's like, he's a young guy who has the benefit of being rich and getting to like enjoy his life. I think he is the richest family in Brazil is what they say in the show. So like, of course he's like a spoiled brat, but that doesn't make him necessarily like a bad character. And like, the more he's exposed to the real ideas that are happening, and right away in the first episode, he is kidnapped by two different organizations, basically. And he pushes back, saying to the X-Men, so you guys are kidnapping me now. So like, he's aware, but also like, he's not quite taking the threat of being hunted down to execution, maybe seriously enough. And that's something that gets like driven home over time as he spends more time with the X-Men. So you get to see this growth curve. And I think it's really interesting that you're playing the character who probably has like the biggest potential curve, because we're running into like Scott and Jean in their 30s. You know, Logan's 200 years old. Yeah, Magneto and Charles are, I'm guessing, probably like in their late 50s, early 60s in this kind of storyline. But you're an adult playing, you know, a guy who's right just becoming an adult. So a lot of us young men make stupid decisions and do selfish things. And he doesn't feel like a character that's really like out of touch or out of place in that way. But for you playing someone who's 18, is there some like switch that you have to make, or you're just like, I'm going to go read these lines and give it my all, but not really mentally make any kind of change?
No, I think there's definitely, you know, something, because again, is the character, and if I'm, regardless if it's just my voice, if I'm playing, you know, I don't have to worry about how it's going to look, you know, because it's obviously just voice work. But the that focus or the mindset is just like if I were interpreting him, you know, on camera. You know, I have to embody, I have to be, you know, a little bit more. I want to put myself in that, like, how was I when I was 18, you know, and obviously the scenes and a lot of what's on the page helps support that, right? So it's like there is a little bit of the mentality, because also my vocal quality changes like a little bit. It's like, it's not that I don't change anything, there's a little bit of it, and then some moments are amped up more, because I think that also is what happens, you know, with you know, with some teenagers. Some are more mature than others, and there are moments that, like, oh my god, they feel so mature, and then others you'll see like, oh my god, he's a real kid, right? Just like with, you know, 20-year-olds and 22 and 23, like, you know, I see that more clearly now. I recently went back to an acting class I've been taking, and I was like, wow, I see like some 22s and 25s, and some, like, man, you look at them like they look like 29. And some have a little bit of that, but then you see other parts, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's a combination. When some of these things that are heavier, or it needs a little bit more of that maturity, then I tap more into that part of myself. When it's going more, you know, into Danger Room, for instance, you know, those lines are funny, you know, or like the Motendo part, like there's so much more of that kid in me that comes out, because that's what it's being asked of that moment, you know. So there's definitely a little something for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's great to hear that, like, you still get to like tap into that sort of being not just a kid, but like remembering being a kid watching the X-Men cartoon. So like you get to access this part of your own personal history for this character, and I think that's fantastic. And, you know, I'll ask you one more question about the show itself. And I'm curious, like, for people that maybe like haven't watched the show yet, or maybe were fans of the original, maybe they just don't want to take a chance on a cartoon or something. What is the thing that you would want people really to take away from the show?
Good question. Look, I just think it's really an exceptional show that, as many have said since it's come out, it's not just a cartoon. And even again, as I was in the process of making it, though, again, I got that information, and this is not for kids, it's mature. I'm reading on the page. I had no idea until I watched it and I experienced it that it was going to be that, and it was going to have that impact. So, you know, through the cons and the signings experiences I've had, like, some people have not watched it. They're fans. They have not watched it yet for either like work or whatever. And then, you know, my thing is just always like, well, you know, especially if you've watched growing up, if you've seen it, like, just please watch it, you know, find the time. It doesn't have to be all in one sitting, but I think, like, yeah, you're going to have a little bit of that nostalgia, but just the show itself has so many great themes and beautiful moments, and it's so cinematic. Like, it's such an experience. So I don't know. People will take will take with them different things. So there's not one thing in particular other than like watch it and experience and see how much it'll affect you, because we're all doing this to be affected one way or the other. And look, most of the people so far have had very deep experiences right through all 10 episodes, but you don't have to, just by the sheer joy of watching something that's cool that you enjoyed, growing up. I think it's more than worth it, but I think it's gonna do more than that, so I just say watch it, give it a chance. And look, if you don't like it, if it's not really, then it's fine. But I think it's really worth the chance.
It's absolutely worth the chance. It's a fantastic show. And I think what you said about it being cinematic is one of the stronger elements of it, because it frees itself from having to present all this in live action. It's like anything we can think of, we can draw up and put that together. But like the cinematography in the show is fantastic. Like the way the show is blocked makes the action look incredible. Like in the first episode, I'm like, oh my goodness, they're really like, are you going to be able to keep this up for 10 episodes? Because it's amazing. And the answer is yes. You keep it up for 10 episodes and it always looks great. And I think the scale of it also helps too. It feels like it's important. Because it's only 10 episodes, it wasn't like, hey, we're going to do 26 episodes. We're going to do 6 seasons. So there's going to be hundreds of episodes. It's like each one felt bigger and more important. And like just sort of some of the adult stuff for me personally was like the first episode starts with Jean is pregnant. And her and Scott are like, well, we are considering leaving the X-Men so that we can raise our baby in a safe environment. And it's like, that's a real adult conversation, a real topic. And I was like, oh, wow, I kind of want an entire Jean and Scott road movie where it's just the two of them. Like, hey, we've left the X-Men behind. Kind of the mutant and the superpowers are kind of in the background and it becomes a relationship drama. And then when you find out that like, hey, this is actually her clone. They're both psychics. Like Scott's horribly stuck in the middle because they can both read his mind. So he's kind of shit out of luck when it comes to like that situation. But all of the character dynamics are super interesting. Like Rogue and Gambit's storyline is very, very emotional. I mean, Roberto and Jubilee have their sort of like budding romance and there's a lot of flirtation. But like you said, at the end of the day, they're maybe not at the point where like he's obligated to her in any way. And so when push comes to shove and like he's been stressed by what's happened in his own life, by what happened with his mom, like the writing is just so good in the show.
Yes.
So for anybody that is maybe just like thinking of it as a cartoon and sort of being dismissive about it for that reason, like it looks great, it's written great, the performances are great, and it's not a huge time investment either. So like worst case scenario, you watch something great and you just happen to not jive with it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my point. And look, it's not going to be for 100% of the people out there, but obviously, there's a lot of fans in this world that love these characters and love this universe and this world, and hence why they decided to bring it back, and it's having the success. But I was so surprisingly shocked about the reception of the critics, having that kind of not feedback, but rating, across the board. It was really shocking to me. So it's pretty awesome because they get it, they get all these big themes that, look, the X-Men are known for. That's what they did in the 90s. That's where where it all started. And so they continued and did it because of the, now like also hearing like Larry Houston, the director of the original one, and the Lee Walds and stuff, like it's so wonderful because obviously they did what they did in the 90s that was already ahead of their time, but there were so much more they wanted to have done, but they couldn't because of many reasons. And now we live in a different world that these things can be brought to life much harder, and they did. So yeah.
And the success of the What If series that was also on Disney too kind of like opened the door back up to like wow, like Marvel animation on like a high production scale is really cool. And it sort of brings the comic books to life in a way that the live action stuff doesn't, and like maybe can't even quite
Yeah,
get
yeah,
to.
yeah. That's good. That's good to say because as much as we want to compare and I get it, it's just so hard. I mean, you just you can't do it. You can't compare the comics to the animation to the live action. You know, it's just they are different beasts. They have limitations. You know, and I mean, especially as you go in that line, you know, you have so much more freedom and with the comics, and then you have way more in the cartoon, but you're much more restricted in the live action. So, you know,
Yeah, everything's an effect shot when there's lasers shooting all over the place. So you have to be very mindful of that budget and how you spend it. So I mean, I think it's a fantastic show. I'm really just like happy for you to be able to get the opportunity to do this and to do all the Comic-Con stuff and to like meet all the fans and see all the excitement. And like, I mean, this is just, it's a whirlwind. It's been a pleasure having you. And, you know, most of what I wanted to ask you was like non-show specific stuff. But at the same time, like this is a podcast about the show. So I wanted to make sure that I put all that stuff
of
forward.
course. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
But we got a couple minutes left, so I'll ask you a couple of them. But where did acting enter your life? You were a tennis player for a while, right? That was your vocation, that you were pursuing it. I think you even played professionally, if I'm not mistaken.
I tried to. Never actually. I played a couple of professional tournaments. They're called Futures. I don't know if you watched. I actually recently, on my way to Boston this past weekend, I finally watched Challengers with Zendaya.
Yes.
Incredible movie. I was very
Very
my
good.
God, it's such a good movie, and the tennis is so much better than I thought. So it's very very happy. Yeah. But you know, so Challengers is this, you know, the ATP. Actually, that I think Challengers and Futures are not even ATP tournaments. They're like another organization, ITF. I don't even know anymore, but they're like different levels of professional tournaments. And the bottom level are called Futures, and then you come to Challengers, and that's all about like prize money, really, and who gets in the draw. So I played a couple of Futures, but you know, qualifying for Futures, not even main draw. So I was never good enough to actually, you know, play at that level, but that's what I wanted. Yeah. And so I landed in Venezuela, where I met my coach, who changed my game and changed my life. And then I had gotten a scholarship to come to the US at Lander University in South Carolina, where I'll actually be next week, which I'm very excited. I'm going back since 2010 when I left, and I'm going to be doing a talk with the students. I'm really excited.
Awesome.
I'm so excited for that experience. And so, but 6 months prior to me arriving to the US, which I extended because I already had the scholarship to start in January, but I wanted that extra time because I felt like I was really, you know, getting better. And I think another 6 months was going to put me at a different level. And it did. But then I started modeling like 3 or 4 months before moving to the US. And through modeling, my agency started getting these auditions, that I booked my first 3 that I ever auditioned for, like campaigns of like print campaigns and stuff. And so I got excited because I was making money for the first time. And then they sent me out on this commercial audition, which made more money. And I had to act for the first time. And it was a horrible experience. It was a Subway commercial. It's improv. It was bad. And I was way more introverted than I am now. You know, I mean, I'm an extrovert introvert, but like, man, I mean, I had no business being there. So I called my agency and I was like, look, can you recommend me to like an acting class? Because I need to learn this technique thing. This is the only way I will be able to book these commercials that pay more money. That was the only reason I wanted to get acting classes. And so she recommended me to this woman, Matilda Corral, who actually had studied at the Actors Studio in New York. So she taught the method, which I didn't know at the time, but I went to observe her class. I was terrified, but I loved it. It was such an incredible experience, so much psychology. I had a sports psychologist through my teen years and stuff. So I loved psychology, and that to me felt so like, working on your own stuff. And it felt like, it just felt so wonderful. So I begged her to let me stay, because she only worked with professional actors. And so I was very honest. I'm like, look, I'm here for a couple months and I'm going away. I play tennis, but I like this a lot. And you tell me what to do, I'll do anything, and I'll be there all the times. And so she did. And then after that, I went to another studio there too. It was like, worked with a lot of TV stars or people who worked on TV a lot in Venezuela. And that was my introduction. I read my first Shakespeare plays and stuff. And so when I came to the US for my luck, Lander University has a theater program. And so I was like, I want to do, I was going to do business. I majored in business, but I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'll take these acting classes and these theater classes, because I didn't know what I was going to do in my life. I knew tennis was never going to be, it was just going to get me through college. And so I joined. And then Monique Bagwell, the teacher there who runs the theater program, cast me in my very first play ever, Picnic, by William Inges, which is also a movie with William Holden in 1950. And I played the lead character. And I also had no business. I don't know, like she saw something in me. And I guess my physical attributes at the time helped me. And it was wonderful. I mean, I was on stage, 400 or 500 people, all my players of the team, everybody was like, like making fun of me, but it was such a wonderful experience. And that's how it really started. And I then left. I went to my Fort Lauderdale, but I went to Florida. I was going to study there for 3 months for the summer, because I felt like I wanted to get more of like a professional experience. Lander, it was a great introduction, but such a small town, small university. And I was actually going to get transferred to Tennessee to play at not actually play. I was going to be part of the Division I team. But I was not going to be able to play, but my scholarship was going to be better and the theater department was bigger. So it made sense. But when I got to Miami, I come from a, big town, like big, and I was like, I was in love with Miami. And then then I did my first, I audited everything in that town. And I did my first, acting workshop, of a weekend thing with Aaron Spicer, who at that time had coached Will Smith in every single of his movies, Gerard Butler, J-Lo. And I was like, whoa, this is and he teaches Uta Hagen. So I was exposed to that. And I'm like, oh my God, I fell in love with that. And then I met other teachers and I was like, this is where I want to be. So I said no to my scholarship in Tennessee, convinced my dad. I did an associate. I went to a community college, got my associate's degree as I was studying in all these different acting schools, a lot of them in Spanish because I spoke Spanish. So after a year, after I graduated with a associate's degree, I was able to get a work permit, and then I started working in a couple of soaps. Did my first appearances, some commercials, got my agency. Then my agency sponsored my visa, and then I was just working. And then I moved to New York to attend an acting conservatory. And after that, that's when I started working at CSD. And then I just got my different managers, different agents through the years, and started to create my own work. That's why I direct, because I did actually my very first short film. Well, now 11 years ago, a couple of months before I left Miami to go to New York for the acting conservatory. I was just so fed up is I guess the word, with these student films and these projects that I never got the footage, or they were really not great. The reality, they were bad. And I was watching some that I would go and watch, they were actually good. And the ones that I was part of, they were not good. And I'm like, damn. And I guess I had a little bit of an arrogance, but I was like, I just can do better. And if I don't, at least it's mine. And I know I'm going to have the footage. And that was the only reason. But I loved the experience, and I knew nothing about directing, but I learned a lot. My DP was great. I had worked with him in this YouTube thing that I was doing as a host, and he was the cameraman, and he did it all. He audio, everything, and he was amazing to work with, and I learned a lot from him. But that's where it all started. And then in my acting conservatory, we had film history, and we would create these short films for class. And then one of my best friends in that school, who's an incredible filmmaker. So I learned a ton from him. And then I started to create things with my friends and my ex at the time, did so many different things. And that's where it all like began for me in terms, or continued. And the spark for the passion for directing really grew and grew and grew. And I'm like a little bit of a control freak. So I'm like, I can do these things the way I want to do, and do it in my own taste and put my own voice and put my own things. And I'm very visual. So I like it a lot. And I learned how to edit, and I learned how to do sound. So I know a lot of the filmmaking process. But yeah, that's kind of what the journey has been.
Well, it's great to hear. I'm glad you get to go back to your alma mater and speak. Are you working on something right now as a director? I see credits listed as upcoming.
Yeah, well, some of them are not listed. Yeah, I've been procrastinating, updating the IMDb, but I have 3 shorts in different parts of the process. One is already fully finished, and it's going to premiere at Gig Harbor Film Festival. I think it's September, and we're waiting for a couple other festivals we submitted to. It's called To the End, and I shot at the end of 2021 in New York. It's a New York story. And it's like, well, it was supposed to be more of a dark comedy, but it's really a drama. It turned into a drama. It was written by Greg Fusco, and he's an incredible writer, and we're good friends now. I met him at the Orlando Film Festival, which is one of my favorite festivals, that I hope that we actually show that short in October. Which, if that happens, from LA Comic-Con, I would go to New York Comic-Con, and from New York, I would go to the Orlando Film Festival, literally like back to back. That's my plan. Hopefully it works that way. But, and then it's finished, but we're still going to do some different, a little bit more editing on another short that I shot last year in New York called You Are Funny. It's a dramedy written by Ashley Felina Rose, who, I worked with in The Time Traveler's Wife, and she stars in it, and I directed as well, and I am, her co-star. So that has a few little things that we want to tweak before we start submitting to the film festival circuit, probably next year at this point. And then I shot one at the end of January this year called West Texas Home, and we're almost getting close to final cut, image on final cut. For that short that I'm extremely proud of. I think it's my best work. It's definitely, I feel like it's my ticket to the bigger festivals. I've been getting incredible feedback from, I have final cut on the image of the first 3 minutes, the opening. It's going to be a 15-minute short. And it's a beautiful story, very unique, very out there, some big themes. I mean, it's simple in a way. It's literally essentially it's a love story, it's a breakup story, essentially. But the details and the circumstances are very unique, and it's beautifully shot. We went, it's so beautiful. So that's gonna premiere eventually next year. I actually got today or yesterday. I'm working with the same composer I've worked with most of my major shorts, and he's wonderful, Matthew Carton, and he actually works with the composer of Rings of Power. And he sent me his first version of the opening, and I haven't listened to it yet, but I cannot wait. This has been so busy. Very exciting. Yeah. So that's what's happening in terms of my short films. I have one feature film that I was a part of. I don't know if it's listed on my IMDb. I think so. Unicorn Diaries. I don't know when that's going to premiere. It takes, sometimes my shorts take 2 years, I imagine, for a feature film, but I think it's hopefully this fall or next year. I haven't touched base with the director or the writer, creator, but, I have a fun character there. I hope it looks great, and it's, and it's good, but it was a really fun project to work on, but I don't have anything like that I'm shooting or really doing, other than actually I did a pickup thing on Monday for another short film of a first-time director writer for her short that I worked a couple months ago, and we did some pickup, for the short. But yeah, I wish I had even bigger things, but hopefully soon. If not by the end of the year, then hopefully next year. But yeah, I'm very happy and excited how this year has been so golden for me, and we'll see what this next few months bring.
Yeah, busy man. I know you've got to get out of here. You got a signing after this. Where can people find you that want to find you? I'm gonna put it all up in the show notes, but I'll let you drop those socials for us.
Cool, appreciate it, Nick. Well, I'm at Gui Agustini, AGUSTINI1. So it's Gui Agustini 1. That's Instagram, Twitter. Which I don't really go there often. I mostly use Instagram. Yeah, I have a Facebook, but I don't really use it. So Instagram is where I'm active. So give me a follow over there. I'm very, as much as I can, I share the things that are going on. I try to be as communicative with the community and the people as I can. But yeah, that's basically it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and maybe we'll do it again in the future, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. You're welcome back anytime you want to come on and chat with us. So
I appreciate you, man. And absolutely, you keep me posted next year for second season. I'm totally up for it. But if it works out for something else, just it'd be a pleasure. So thank you, man, and keep up the good work. I appreciate you, man. Good vibes.
Well, thank you again. I do appreciate it. Take care. A huge thank you to Gui for coming by and sharing so much insight with me. If you want to meet Gui and you're in the LA area, you can do so at LA Comic-Con the weekend of October 4th, 5th, and 6th. And I put the link for tickets up in the show notes for you to make it easy. Thank you for checking out the show and becoming an X-Friend. Hopefully, you'll join us on our journey through X-Men 97 and beyond. X-Friends is a Movie Friends and Bad Movies We Love co-production and part of the Scheist Podcast Network, hosted by Seth Vargas and Nick Scheist. You can find our contact info and socials in the show notes, and you can email the show directly at xfriends@thescheist.com. That's the letter X, friends@thescheist.com. So until next time, the name is Sunspot. Definitely has a lot more flair.